from Abuja.
Hello, I'm glad you're a part of this one. We appreciate you. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and this is Magnus Kpakol gvA, Global Views Africa. In view today, a chainsaw, a whip, and a knife for inflation in Nigeria. Today we dive into a topic that is on everyone's mind: inflation in Nigeria. Our discussion will also include the bold and controversial strategies that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is employing to combat the economic challenges we face. But before we get into all that, we will serve you our economics in action. Today, featuring the hidden economics in BBNaija. That's coming right up. So, as it turns out, BBNaija offers great benefits to the Nigerian economy. In today's Economics in Action, we will explore the hidden economics of the reality show. BBNaija is one of the most popular reality TV shows in Nigeria today, with significant cultural, economic, and social impact. The reality show series is based on the Big Brother television franchise owned by the BBNaija Group. Since its inception, the show has garnered both praises and criticisms, making it a topic of much debate. So beyond the arguments, today we will delve into the hidden economics of the reality show. BBNaija has produced numerous celebrities, movie stars, and influencers in its 9 seasons of existence. The likes of Olamelokun, they call him Lekon Agbeleshe, Toby Bakri, Mercy Eke, and Vivacious Bisola Ayola, to mention a few. These celebrities have prospered thanks to their participation in the reality show. And you know what? Each season of BBNaija produces at least one millionaire. And the winner of this season 9 episode will be going home with a whopping 100 million naira and a brand new SUV to boot. That could have been you. According to Bisola Tejumola, Executive Head of Content and West Africa Channels of MultiChoice Nigeria, a total investment of 5.5 billion naira was put into season 8 of the show. The investment covered the cost of production, construction, fittings, technical, licensing, satellite, and marketing. Typically, these funds support various sectors, including media, advertising, and telecommunications, creating jobs and incomes for families. So you see, BBNaija generates employment opportunities for a wide range of professionals, from production crews to marketing teams. This helps reduce unemployment and stimulates economic activity. In season 8 alone, 2,000 people were employed directly, while a lot more were employed indirectly. YouTubers smile to the bank because of the show. The tourism and hospitality sectors experienced a boost during the time of the show as well, as fans travel to attend events and engage with the show, driving even more economic activity. In season 8, over 1.53 billion engagements were recorded by fans in terms of voters. The show encourages consumer spending, unrelated merchandise, and voting and subscriptions to watch the show. All this spending and related activities support businesses and contribute to the overall economy. And to top it, a key takeaway for us is that the show promotes human capital development by showcasing emotional intelligence, leadership ability, branding, communication, teamwork, and competition, decision making, resilience, and demand and supply, among others. Folks, these are the things that govern the way a society works. And there you have it, our economics in action.
You're welcome back to the In View segment of the Magnus Kpakol gvA show. I am Joan Eze, and today's topic is very, very, very important. We need to look into. And the topic for today is inflation and other prices. Joining me from Canada is Professor Magnus Kpakol. Welcome to the program, Magnus Kpakol. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Ms. Joan. Very happy to be with you on Magnus Kpakol gvA.
It's an honor to have you. All right, let's move forward to the business of today. July report is showing a reduction of prices of goods and services compared to the month of June. Does this call for celebration?
Well, no, Joan, this does not really call for a celebration as far as I'm concerned. I think that what we have seen, is appreciable. I mean, it's something that people can notice, that the inflation rate has come down a little bit, but it is still well over 30%. And I think, with that type of rate, I'm not going to see a lot of people. I don't imagine that we will see a lot of people jumping up and down in the streets that prices are low in the market. When they go to the market tomorrow, they will still see that prices are pretty high. But basically this is something, it shows that perhaps there is some sort of a marginal reduction that has occurred, and maybe going forward, we might start trending downward. But there is really no cause for jumping up and down. You see, the problem really is this, that the cost of living in the country is pretty high. So what that means is that over the last several years, we've been seeing rising inflation, which has been raising the cost of living. So let's imagine that in year one, you have a 20% inflation rate. Year two, you have 25%. So that means now you're adding 25% on top of the 20% that you had before. And then you go on, you add 30%, you add 33%. So you get to a very high level in terms of cost of living. But meanwhile, I'm pretty sure salaries and incomes have not increased, commensurably. Therefore, people feel that pinch quite significantly. They see this rise in prices that have been cumulative, and then they don't see a commensurate rise in income. And that's what people are really crying about. So the problem is, even if today we were to see an inflation rate of only 20%, people will still be crying about their cost of living or about their circumstances. Because the problem is not that inflation has come down, but the problem is that the cost of living is still pretty high. So that's what the problem is in the country. But I suppose that we'll continue to hunker down as we have been, because there's no running away from it until we begin to produce the goods and services that the people of the world want, until we begin to be more productive. We will always be seeing these kinds of situation.
Okay, so what do you think it will be in the next 2 to 3 months?
Well, I think that in the next 2 or 3 months, as I said, not much will change in terms of how people feel. Even if we begin to see prices come down towards 30% or perhaps even under as we compare to last year. Because, as I said, the cost of living is still pretty high, and incomes are not rising as fast. Even if you look at the minimum wage that we've just raised to 70,000 naira, well, that's probably at best a little over 2 times the level that we had before the increase in the minimum wage, assuming that it begins to take effect. But even that is not anywhere close to the multiple levels by which the cost of living has gone up.
Quickly, sir, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power, he made two economic policies. That is the removal of fuel subsidy and floating of exchange rates. This, of course, led to inflation. What can you say about this? What can you say about it being connected to the current hike in prices of goods and services?
Joan, I think that there is a connection between the pronouncements of the president, what happened after the pronouncements of the president, a pronouncement in this case, because the pronouncement was actually with regard to the subsidy of petroleum products. So essentially, the pronouncement, let me just repeat, let me say this, that the pronouncement was really about the price of fuel going up, and that subsidies are removed. That was what the pronouncement was, that now subsidy is gone.
The first subsidy is gone.
So obviously, if you have to remove the fuel subsidy that people were, as we would say, enjoying, then certainly prices will go up. Transportation prices go up. That filters into other sectors of the economy, and other prices also go up. Prices of vegetables will go up. Prices of foodstuffs will go up as they bring them from their farms to the marketplace. The prices of other commodities also go up as people try to raise their prices to be able to keep up with the rising trend. So obviously that had an effect. And then to present a double whammy, so to speak, when we devalued the currency, then that presented its own problems, as if we didn't have any already, compounding the situation. So the devaluation of the naira has made things very difficult. Now, I'm not trying to say that it was wrong to remove the subsidy, or that it was wrong to devalue the currency. Actually, in all fairness, we needed to remove the subsidy. The problem is that we did not prepare for the subsidy removal. We don't have buses, that are going down our streets in the urban, especially in the urban areas. We don't even have public buses, I meant to say, going down our streets in our cities. We don't have public transportation that can cushion things. The effect of this sort of activity where you remove the subsidy for even rural farmers bringing their produce to the cities, to the major urban areas. We didn't take cognizance of that, so we did not prepare. I see now that the president is rallying, trying to remedy the situation by providing the CNG buses and things like that, which eventually should help a little bit, providing some cushion. But as it has been the case, people have had nothing to switch to, and so there's been very little elasticity with regard to people. There's no room for adjustment. They just had to just face what they face. They had nothing else to switch to when this has happened. So this has been a difficult situation, but I don't know if the president has kept the subsidies in place, then we will have continued to subsidize our neighbors in the other West African countries, as we have been doing, because they are not subsidizing in their countries, and we are subsidizing. So obviously that created arbitrage, that has created arbitrage, as we get PMS at a very low price. I mean, and nobody will tell you that you can go ahead and sell in the countries where they have very high prices, since you are not commanding such high prices in your own country. The profit margin for any trader would be pretty obvious in terms of where to go. They would certainly just go to the other countries that are charging higher prices, and that's what we're facing. Okay, so that's the reason why the people will take their products, especially in this case PMS, to other countries, where they can get higher prices, and then that's why you have the gasoline cubes that we see at our filling stations or petrol stations, because the people have taken the PMS that they would have sold in our gasoline stations, and they've taken them to other countries where they can find better margins for their business.
Okay, let's move to countries that have actually suffered inflation and they were victorious. Countries like China, United States. What exactly, can you share from your wealth of knowledge, what exactly did these countries do? What steps did they take for them to come out from that?
Okay, well, there are some countries that have been able to defeat hyperinflation. Hyperinflation when you have what the economists sometimes call runaway inflation. You have very, very high levels of inflation, sometimes in hundreds of percent. I mean, we're talking 32, 33% here in Nigeria, but there are countries, even right now, that have inflation over 400%. Like in Venezuela, for example, countries in Zimbabwe have inflation rates well over 130%. We have seen inflation in thousands of percent in Brazil, in Argentina in the past. Even if you go back several years, even in Hungary, they had inflation in just thousands and thousands of percentage. So what have some of these countries been able to do? What did they do to tame inflation in their countries? Well, in many cases, the countries had to even abandon their own currencies and started using the dollar, as we saw with Zimbabwe. They just simply abandoned their currency. In other cases, they tried to tie their currency to the US dollar. And they had a fixed exchange rate, which they tried to defend. The problem was that in many cases, they had difficulty defending the currency. They didn't have enough dollars to use to defend the currency. So they simply would abandon the currency and they use the US dollar as their currency. So as an official currency for that matter. So this is what has happened. But otherwise, typically, what the governments tend to do, or central banks tend to do, is to raise interest rates as the only tool they have. But as I've always said, in developing countries, the interest rate tool does not tend to work as well, because most consumers don't buy things on credit. So when the central bank raises interest rates, the only thing that it does, as far as I'm concerned, much of what it does is to just affect the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector, where people ostensibly take loans. So the prices go up for them, and for me, it can make things even more severe, because you raise prices in the industrial sector and to them, and then they lay off workers, and it makes things a little bit difficult for people. So you stress out the economy. You may succeed in bringing prices down to some degree, but you cause the problem of a recession. So question is, which problem should we face? Should we face high prices, or should we face high unemployment? And that's a decision the policymakers face from time to time. So when we use interest rates as a way of taming inflation in developing countries, we really have to be careful because it can actually cause a recession. It can cause the unemployment rate to rise. It can cause GDP growth rate to be slow. In some cases, you can really create a hard landing, where you have a deceleration in the growth rate to where you get a flat growth rate, and then you can get a negative growth rate. And then you don't want that kind of hard landing happening in your economy. So So we got to be careful when we try to fight inflation. The tools sometimes are limited on the monetary policy side, but I think that he may have more robust tools on the fiscal side, especially if you're doing very good management, fiscal policy management. Basically, what I mean by that is trying to be sure that you spend prudently, that you don't have corruption, that you don't have people that are taking huge amounts of the government's money, of the people's money, and putting it in their own pockets and going out there and spending. And then also you don't have politicians spending to please people, especially as you get near an election period. So we got to be careful in the developing countries to be more prudent on the fiscal side. And I think that that's basically what it is. That's what we face in the developing countries, is that we got to be careful when we try to tame inflation. And the countries that have been successful have been very disciplined on the monetary policy side. They've used a little bit of, you can't tell monetary policy people, the central bank, not to raise interest rates, but that's the tool that they have. They try, but then they should not overdo it, so you don't kill the real economy, the real sector, where people are producing goods and services. And at the same time, we got to be very prudent on the fiscal side, so that we are not inefficient. Basically, we don't put too much money out there. At the end of the day, the inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. It means that money has come out, whether it be money in terms of too much supply, as with monetary policy, or too much disbursement, as on the fiscal side. But one way or the other, you get inflation because there's too much money out there. And so we need to be prudent in controlling inflation, stabilizing the country, stabilizing prices, and making sure that the people are happy. At the end of the day, what's really important is that we're able to do things where we invest in the people, we cause our people to be happy, we cause our economies to grow. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Magnus Kpakol, for your time.
Thank you very much, Joan. You're welcome.
That was Professor Magnus Kpakol. Thank you so much, sir, for contributing your wealth of knowledge to this particular segment. Join us as we have guests for the Magnus Kpakol gvA recap. Remember to hit the like button and do not forget to subscribe for more notifications. It's Joanne Eze. Bye for now.
Let's get right into it. Inflation in Nigeria has been stubbornly high, hanging above 30% for some time now. It's a beast that needs to be tamed. And President Tinubu appears to have taken a chainsaw. He said he was cutting fuel and other subsidies, aiming to free up resources for critical infrastructure projects and to boost production. This, he believes, will lay the groundwork for a stronger economy. But here is the dilemma. These cuts have led to a spike in inflation rather than curbing it. And as fuel prices soared, so did the cost of most goods and services. At the same time, President Tinubu took another bold step, deregulating the foreign exchange market. The idea was to let the naira find its own level, to free it from artificial constraints that hurt trade and production. However, as we have seen, these moves have stirred the inflation pot even more so. Typically, a tool to fight inflation has proven to be somewhat toothless. And this is especially so in developing countries. The Central Bank of Nigeria has raised interest rates repeatedly, but inflation remains unrelenting. Why? Well, because the money supply continues to grow, fueling price increases. It's like trying to put out a fire with a leaky hose. So what's next? This is where the knife comes in. President Tinubu needs to wield this knife to shave overhead spending. Our ministries, departments and agencies, even our legislature, judiciary and the bureaucracies in them have gotten far too comfortable with bloated budgets. So trimming this fat is essential to stabilize our economy. But perhaps more crucially, we need the president to bring out that whip. Yes, a whip against the perpetrators of corruption. Bureaucrats and political leaders have been feeding off the system for too long. In fact, they've become too fat and heavy to run the competitive race that we have out there that Nigeria actually needs to win in. Folks, corruption isn't just a moral issue. It is an economic one. It drags down efficiency, distorts markets, and erodes public trust. But okay, let's face it. In the end, President Tinubu's decision to end the fuel subsidy was inevitable. It was a subsidy that was essentially benefiting not just Nigerians, but also much of Western and Central Africa. Yet, a more targeted subsidy could have been more effective in cushioning the blow for the Nigerian people. Politicians often miss this. The microeconomy involving the daily struggles of ordinary Nigerians is what really matters. How we ensure people can put food on the table, transport their goods, and keep their businesses running. That's what's critical. And transportation is important to keep people happy. Just visit the arrival halls at airports, bus stops, and train stations. And let's not forget the Naira devaluation. While painful, it was necessary to spur exports, even though, ironically, we lack the production capacity to fully benefit from it. Without the devaluation, things could have been even worse. Panic could have set in. The economy could have collapsed. Folks, the reality is, we need to focus on boosting production because that's the main key to a buoyant economy. So, that chainsaw to cut waste, a knife to trim excesses, a whip to drive out corruption. These are the tools that President Tinubu needs to wield with precision to tackle inflation and set Nigeria on the path to economic recovery. Remember, the road to economic stability is tough, but with the right tools and leadership, Nigeria can overcome its challenges. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and that's my view.